Let's read through a recent email. Hi, Kris. I found your YouTube and really love what I see. I am a 15-year front end developer who has worked with ADA for 5 years now for some bigger clients when I was at the ad agency. I am venturing out now on my own. All that to say, I have a good knowledge of ADA coding and manual testing, but there is still so much to know, i.e., vpats, etc. So, do you have any guidance on your site for people like me who are really into ADA, have a good base of experience, and moving into consulting? I am especially interested in you because you are also an attorney, big plus in all caps. Okay, so let's go over my thoughts as I'm reading this email. First, the 15 years experience as a front end developer is a tremendous advantage. And she writes here that she has good knowledge of manual testing. So presumably she can both audit and remediate websites. So that's a huge head start. What's also a head start is that she has experience working with clients. She writes that she's been in this space for 5 years now. And this, as she's writing the email, and we've had subsequent emails, she's particularly focused and has worked in website accessibility for ADA compliance. So when people ask for ADA compliance, what they're almost always saying is, sometimes it is actual, like we want to make sure that we are generally compliant, but most clients are focused on how do we not get sued anymore for accessibility. So she's been in this space for 5 years, and that's going to be very helpful because as you work with clients, you start to understand their various needs, approaches, and priorities. So absorbing that information helps you with your subsequent clients because you'll start to understand more what they need, more where you need to help them understand what they need. So there's just so much advantage to having firsthand experience working with clients. And then she writes that she is venturing out now on her own. I wrote back, congratulations, because as much responsibility as comes with running your own business, at the same time, there is just exponentially more reward. Now, if you're not interested in that high ceiling, of course, like careers and jobs, they are plentiful in digital accessibility. So it really just depends on what your style is, like how much you want to take on. But venturing out on your own is commendable. It does come with definite risk because this is this what I would do, what I'd recommend is whatever you're doing currently, start stacking on your entrepreneurial endeavor with that. So, of course, it's going to be an increased workload, but that's what I would recommend so that you're not absorbing that risk really. You're just adding to what you're already doing. And then hopefully you can transition out of your employment if you want to and into your business. And then continuing on with the email, I have good knowledge of ADA coding and manual testing. We went over that. One note here is before or when you're opening up your business, you need to make sure that when you're talking to clients that you keep the terms aligned with their actual meeting. So it wouldn't be ADA coding because there's really not such a thing as ADA coding. It's coding for accessibility, and there's ADA compliance. So there's just understanding the different terms, like digital accessibility refers to accessibility for different digital assets, and that's going to include software, documents, etc., native mobile apps. And then web accessibility is going to include website accessibility. Website accessibility is self-explanatory. Web accessibility is going to apply to all web-based assets that can be accessed by a web browser. So, just making sure that your terminology is straight is another thing. As far as there's still so much to know, that's one thing I found out is that as I started continuing on past website accessibility, looking into different laws, looking into like she says vpats, then acrs, and the list goes on. And my channel somewhat shows this because as I made more and more videos, I realized there was more and more videos to make. Originally, I thought my channel might be 50 or 100 videos and I wouldn't have that much more to add. But as I found out, there are so many details here, and there are so many aspects of accessibility. Obviously, my channel has gone beyond ADA compliance. Side note, I've actually created a channel about the European Accessibility Act because I keep getting a lot of questions about that. But I'll talk about that in a subsequent video, and later on I will add a link to the description for this video. But she's right. There's just so much to do, and this is why I recommended hyper specialization. Now, what you hyper specialize in, you want to make sure it's broad enough to capture enough clients. But for the most part, it is. This field, this space is absolutely brimming with potential. Like it's just all over the place. In fact, I'm already realizing it. There's just so much demand for accessibility. But at the same time, when you are opening up your own business, what you have to know, what you have to realize is that people have to be able to find you. If they cannot find you, you're not going to get business, despite the fact that people need you all over the world. People need your services. But if they don't know who you are, then you're not going to make it. It's not going to be a successful business. So do you have any guidance on your site for people like me who are really into ADA? Yeah, so I recently created the How to Start a Digital Accessibility Business course because this question comes up so often. People want to know how to get into the space. Sometimes it's about a career, but most of the time it's about starting a consulting-based business. And so I created the course. It addresses consulting, but it also gets into what my approach would be, how I deal with clients, how I recommend marketing. Obviously, YouTube is one of my recommendations. You can see here that I have nearly 400 videos at this point. But you don't have to be on YouTube. Some people don't like to be on camera. By the way, you don't have to be on camera either. You can do videos with just your screen share. But the point is that the course talks all about like my practical recommendations as you are building out your business. Because again, this is the important part. For as many billions of dollars as this industry represents, if people cannot find you, then you're not going to get any of those clients. So continuing reading on, for people who are really in DA, have a good base of experience and moving into consulting. And being an attorney has been an advantage for me for sure. And as far as moving into consulting, it depends, it depends in a way on what type of consulting, because I'm presuming here website accessibility for ADA compliance. And if you're working with clients and this is an ultra litigious environment, at that point, then, you want to make sure that you are delivering exactly what you promised. The client understands exactly what they're getting. Here's part of my guidance, part of my advice would be that clients a lot of time are not listening to you because you're telling them one thing, but they have their mind set on another. And so even if they've come to you and they are seeking out information from you, sometimes clients aren't listening or they're partially listening. And so you really have to make sure that there's alignment between you and the client, so that nothing is misconstrued. When it gets into the LLC aspect, I think an LLC can be a prudent move. I also wouldn't concern myself with an LLC right away. First, I would focus on starting a business. But then, maybe as you formalize that business, as you assess your risk, maybe create an LLC. A lot of people, they spend a lot of time on creating an LLC and setting up a business. They'll write out a business plan. They'll do all of these steps to have the business set up, but then they won't actually execute the business. All they've executed is the actual, like the creation of the business, but there's no actual, like, let's actually make money, because that's what's important. Like you have to, for you to be successful venturing out on your own, you really have to, be able to get clients. You have to have clients coming back to you. You have to have referrals. You should, after a while, you should receive referrals. So yeah, that's my guidance, is that, with consulting, I would, like, she's already moved out onto her own. Everyone has their own individual situations. In general, my recommendation is that you stay with your current income source, and then add to that. Whenever you're not working, you start working on your business, and so you're growing that at the same time that you're working on this job, or maybe it's your existing career. And then that way, it also reduces your risk in case you were to be fired. I've seen on LinkedIn that a lot of people were fired or laid off, whatever the term someone wants to use. But this also, owning your own business is actually risk reduction, because what a lot of people don't think about is that working for a company is actually high risk, because you are subject to the whims of that company. If the company decides that they don't need you anymore, then it's over for you, right? But with your own business, you're never going to fire yourself. So you have this measure of control, and the more work you invest into your business, the smarter you work, the more intelligently you work, the stronger your business will be, and the less risk you will have. So I do think if a side hustle is a great idea, if nothing else, right? Even if you don't intend to create your own business, if you are at least availing yourself to additional clients and then supplementing your income, I think that's a really wise move, especially in this space, how much it's growing. Like, it's good just to at least have, the potential to add on more clients. So you could do this through Upwork and Freelancer, but those are freelancer websites. And it's not, there's nothing wrong with those, but it can be very competitive. And then also Fiverr is for micro gigs. People make real money off of Fiverr, but again, when you're working through these third party platforms, again, you lose a measure of control. With Fiverr, you're going to lose 20% off the top, and I think there are even more fees associated with it. Same thing with Upwork and Freelancer. You're just going to lose fees off the top, so you have to keep that in mind. So you're not, even with that, it's like it comes whenever you're reliant upon these third-party platforms, you're always going to somewhat, in a way, be subject to them, and be subject to bad client reviews, etc. Whatever the case is, a client complains about you. So I do recommend, another recommendation here would be starting your own website, not relying solely upon social media, but making sure that you have a website that everything flows through. That would also be a recommendation. And then just to keep learning, but also, decide what you want to be known for and what to specialize in. And this doesn't have to be set, but I do recommend, maybe at first you start off as a generalist, but eventually I think there's a lot more potential as you grow, as the niche grows, to be successful with one thing versus trying to do everything. So if you're, I don't know, if you're auditing everything and remediating, and you're one of those, the word that's coming to my mind is jack of all trades, but I had another term. But the point is that when you're a generalist, you might become known for accessibility, but it's easier to stand out as someone who is doing one thing and you're serving one niche or one set of clients. I think that's going to be really, really helpful and help you grow that much faster. It's also easier to market that way because you're only doing one thing. But one thing I'll leave you with is this space is this is going to grow so fast. It's already growing right now, and of course we've seen, initially this space grew because of lawsuits, and that's ongoing. That hasn't stopped. But now we're just seeing there's so much need for digital accessibility, and it's beyond lawsuits. It's not just for compliance in name, it's for compliance. And we're going to see all types of clients: small businesses, large companies, medium-sized companies, nonprofits, governmental agencies. Everybody needs digital accessibility. This space cannot be big enough. So I think one, this person who emailed me, first, the experience is just it's such a nice advantage. It's really a head start. But even if you don't have experience, you can rapidly accelerate your experience. Start working with clients. I talk more about this in the course, but everyone can stand to benefit from accessibility. This is being overlooked. People aren't interested in it for some reason. People just can't be bothered with accessibility, like genuine accessibility, not the fake accessibility, real accessibility. People have overlooked it for some time, and this is going to be an absolutely enormous industry, and there is opportunity everywhere right now. I will link to my video on a preview for the course in the description. I will also link to the course in the description, and then any other resources I can think to add. Those will be included in the description as well. But to this emailer, congratulations on starting your business, and it sounds like you have a really, really nice head start.